Alright guys, what's going on? Welcome in. So as we all know, the NFL trade deadline is November 1st, which is a little over a week away. Okay, so it's coming up quickly, and there's been a lot of speculation, not only just with the New York Jets, but with tons of different teams out there, like there is every season. You know, Green Bay's linked to Chase Claypool, like we could see some big moves. But specifically with the New York Jets, I wanted to really talk about two players that realistically could get moved. I feel like the majority of the Jets team is rock solid. They're not going to be moving off of, CJ Mosley and these guys. I think it really comes down to two specific players. The first is Denzel Mims. He actually requested a trade a couple months ago, and the Jets were looking for a 4th-round pick in return for Denzel. Unfortunately, no side got what they wanted, right? Denzel couldn't wind up in a new home, and the Jets couldn't land that 4th-round pick. But we're looking at Denzel Mims right now. Yes, he has struggled to get on the field. Yes, he might not be the best, overall system fit. But when we take a look at when Denzel played consistently under Adam Gase back at Baylor, he was pretty good. I mean, this is a guy who could win contested catches, win 50-50 balls, really be a big red zone threat. I also think Denzel could hurt defenses over the middle of the field off of play action, right? So if you have an effective running game and a veteran quarterback that isn't afraid to step up in the pocket, I think Denzel does a really good job of getting open in the middle of the field and creating positive plays with the football in his hands. Not so much with like screens and stuff like that, screens and slants, but more so longer developed plays. I think that's really where Denzel Mims can shine. And even though he's not getting on the field for the New York Jets, I definitely see him making an impact somewhere else. So we look at Denzel's contract first and foremost, right? How much would another team have to pay him? Virtually not. I mean, it's not a lot. 2nd-round pick. A couple years ago, back in 2019, he's in the 3rd year of his rookie contract. He's a $1.4 million cap hit. I mean, if you're a team that needs a wide receiver, sign me up for that. I mean, he's young. He has some likable traits, ultra productive back in college. It's not like he's absolutely terrible with the New York Jets. It's just that he's not getting on the field consistently, and there's guys in front of him on the depth chart. I feel like there's two really good fits for Denzel right off the bat. The first being the Green Bay Packers. We talked a little bit about them before, and funny enough, I feel like the Packers are linked to like every wide receiver, every trade deadline, but with Denzel, I do see it as a realistic possibility. Number one, I mean, the Packers need to get the passing game going. They have a lot of young talent at wide receiver. Romeo Doubs, Christian Watson. I still consider Alan Lazard, a relatively young player. But outside of those three guys, it's Randall Cobb, it's Sammy Watkins. I feel like they can continue the youth movement at wide receiver. You can go add an ultra-talented player in Denzel for not a lot of draft capital, right? I mean, if the Jets at this point are looking for maybe a 5th or a 6th-round pick for Denzel, I don't think you could find a wide receiver of his talent level at that point in next year's class, if that makes sense. Another point, I think Denzel would see the field in Green Bay, maybe not as a consistent starter where he's seeing, like one of the starting 3, but I definitely see him being more so involved with that Packers offense than the Jets. And then point number 3, there's that coaching connection, right? Matt LaFleur, Mike LaFleur behind the curtain could maybe tell Matt, hey, this is what Denzel's really good at. This is where he struggles. This is why he's not really seeing the field. I mean, there's no media involved there. It's not going to be like any headlines or anything like that. So Mike can just be straight up honest with Matt. And Matt being the head coach of the Green Bay Packers, he could say, you know what, not only do we just need a young, talented wide receiver, but I have the insider information surrounding Denzel Mims, almost like an upgraded scouting report, if you will. So I think Green Bay makes a lot of sense. The second team is the Chicago Bears. When I look at that Bears wide receiving room, they need talent. They got to get Justin Fields some help. I like Mooney a lot. I think Montgomery at running backs, a solid option. Komet at tight end. But I mean, if you're a defensive coordinator going up against that Bears offense, there's not a ton that you have to prepare for talent-wise, right? So I think if you're Chicago, it's almost like, what do you have to lose? Again, I still view Denzel as a productive player on the field. He can make plays. I'm not writing his career off. I don't think he's done in the NFL. And Chicago kind of checks the boxes that we were talking about before, where they're a run-heavy team. They're using the run to set up play action. Justin Fields is not afraid to stand in the pocket, to step up in the pocket. He's also mobile to where you can extend plays as well. I honestly think that, you know, if the Bears were to acquire Mims, by the end of the season, he could be a starter for them. Like, I wouldn't be shocked at all. So Green Bay and the Chicago Bears are my two best fits as far as, you know, trade compensation goes. I don't think the Jets could net a 4th rounder at this point. You know, if they're not getting one at the start of the season, I don't think they could get one at this point. So I would say a 5th to a 7th, somewhere in that range. And look, you know, if he's not going to be seeing the field, if he's not the best system fit, if he wants to leave, then let's just recoup a draft pick, get another, you know, Saleh guy in the building next offseason or next draft cycle and move on from there. I mean, I feel like at this point, there's no point to really hold Denzel hostage if he's not going to see the field whatsoever. Okay, so next up is cornerback Bryce Hall here, and much like Denzel Mims, he's a young, talented player that isn't really seeing the field that much because of the play, or really the talent in front of him. Sauce, Michael Carter, DJ Reed. It's just a struggle for Hall to get on the field. And according to Matt Lombardo, he is going to be available at the trade deadline. We look at Hall as a player. He's a big physical corner that's not afraid to get his hands dirty. And, you know, at times he's looked really good, especially last season. Like, he made some plays, made some big plays last year. He's going to be an unrestricted free agent in 2024, and he's only a cap hit of $970,000. So, I mean, if you're a team out there that needs a cornerback, they might not, you know, if you're a team that's looking for like a cornerback 1 or something like that, you're trying to make the playoff push, Bryce Hall's probably not the answer. But if you're looking for depth, if you want to inject young talent into the secondary, I think Bryce Hall makes a lot of sense. You don't really have to pay him a lot. You have him under control for a long time. I think really the 3 teams that stand out, and the first one is just not going to happen, but I think really, firstly, the team that could really use Bryce Hall's services is the Miami Dolphins. They've struggled against the pass. Xavier Howard has dealt with some injuries. Byron Jones has dealt with some injuries. I believe Jones is still on IR, if I'm not mistaken. I think the Dolphins would really like to have a guy like Hall in the building, but realistically speaking, the 2 teams that I could see actually trading for Bryce Hall, first, the Minnesota Vikings. I look at that team right now. They're on a roll. They're 5-1. Their starting corners are Cameron Dantzler. Loved him back at Mississippi State. In fact, I wish the Jets drafted him, you know, back in that class. I like Dantzler a lot, but Patrick Peterson, you know, he's not going to be playing forever. I believe he's only on a 1-year contract as well. If you want to get Bryce in the building, again, you probably don't have to give up a lot for him. You don't have to pay him a lot. He's going to be on the team next season. I think that would make a lot of sense for that Vikings defense. If somebody were to go down with injury, Hall could step in and, you know, provide solid production. The second team, the Arizona Cardinals, a team that right now is, in my opinion, in a little bit of a desperation mode. You know, we saw they just acquired Robbie Anderson. They have DeAndre Hopkins coming back. There's reinforcements on the way for Arizona, but I don't think it's a complete team right now. They have struggled against the pass. I believe they're ranked 20th and worse in every major passing category on defense. So I think Bryce Hall would come in and do a solid job. Again, might not start immediately, but if there's an injury, he could start. Next season, he could be a starter. We look at their depth chart. It's Byron Murphy and Marco Wilson. Okay, so Minnesota, Arizona, I definitely view as realistic fits. But you know, I think when it comes to Denzel Mims, I'm more so in favor of trading him. Again, let's just please every party involved. Let's get Joe Douglas a pick. Let's move off of Mims and you know, hopefully he can grow somewhere else. I just think that's the best for all parties involved. But with Bryce Hall, I actually, you know, I would want a middle round pick for Bryce. I think a fourth round pick is fair. When you start talking about a 7th round pick or a 6th round pick in exchange for Hall, I think it's just a little too low, in my opinion, because at the end of the day, Hall's one injury away from seeing the field. You know, something happens to Sauce, something happens to DJ Reed. I hate to say it, but it's just something that you have to prepare for in football. It's a contact sport, and given the Jets' bad history with injuries, I don't want to be in a position where they trade Hall. Somebody gets hurt. Hindsight 2020, we should have kept Bryce Hall. I don't want to be in that spot. Denzel Mims, on the other hand, you know, if like Garrett Wilson gets hurt, you can move Elijah Moore around. You can maybe get Braxton Berrios, you know, on the field a little bit more. You have more flexibility at wide receiver, but corner, you know, again, I hate to say it, but if Gardner goes down next week, gets put on IR, what's the plan? You know, probably Bryce Hall. So that's kind of my take on the situation. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. Will the Jets move either one of these players? Would you be in favor of the Jets moving either one of these players? It should be interesting. So I appreciate you watching. Thanks so much. And as always, go Jets.